Ketchup. It's hard to imagine a world without it. For many of us, it's a mealtime essential, a non-negotiable addition to fries, burgers, and hot dogs. But where does it come from? What inspired this tangy, sweet, and savory sauce that's so beloved worldwide? Believe it or not, ketchup's origins stretch back over 300 years, beginning in an entirely different part of the world and with a completely different set of ingredients. If you're imagining tomatoes from the start, sorry, you're way off the mark. Ketchup's history is a tale of global trade, cultural adaptation, and culinary creativity. And the end result is the condiment we all know and love. In this video, we're looking into ketchup's meandering past, tracing its journey from 17th century China to the tomato-rich icon it is today. Along the way, we'll uncover how ketchup became a symbol of American culture, why it's scientifically irresistible, and how it's taken on unique forms in different parts of the world. By the end of this video, guys, I'm absolutely sure you'll never look at ketchup the same way again. Ketchup's surprising Asian beginnings. When we think of ketchup, our minds might go straight to hamburgers, fries, or a bright red squeeze bottle, right? But ketchup's journey begins far from these modern associations.
Heinz tomato ketchup. The best things come to those who wait.
To understand its true origins, we need to travel back to 17th century southern China. The ancestor of ketchup was a sauce known as Ketchup, which wasn't made with tomatoes, or anything even the slightest bit close. Instead, Ketchup was a fermented fish sauce made by preserving fish in a salty brine. It was intensely savory, salty, and pungent, with a strong umami flavor that could elevate the simplest of dishes. Ketchup wasn't a dipping sauce like modern ketchup. Instead, it was used as a seasoning to flavor fish, meat, and other foods. Imagine adding a dash of this sauce to a hot stir-fry or a bowl of soup. It acted much like soy sauce or Worcestershire sauce does today. The name Ketchup itself comes from the Hokkien dialect spoken in southern Fujian, roughly translating to brine of pickled fish. At the time, sauces like Ketchup were essential for preserving food and adding flavor in a world without modern refrigeration. Its long shelf life made it a valuable commodity for travelers, traders, and sailors who relied on it to enhance their meals during long sea journeys. It wasn't long before Ketchup began spreading beyond China. Traders carried it to Southeast Asia, where it was adapted to fit local tastes and ingredients. Variations of Ketchup began appearing in countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, often incorporating local spices and ingredients to create new flavor profiles. As Ketchup gained popularity in Southeast Asia, it caught the attention of European merchants. These traders, fascinated by its bold flavor and versatility, began importing it back to Europe. But of course, when Ketchup arrived in the West, its life was forever altered. How? The evolution of ketchup in Europe. When Ketchup arrived in Europe in the 1600s, it caused quite a stir. Europeans had never encountered anything quite like it before. The sauce's salty, umami-packed flavor was exotic and exciting, but the fermented fish base wasn't particularly appealing to Western palates. So, as was common with imported goods, European cooks began to adapt Ketchup to suit local tastes and ingredients. The first European versions of ketchup bore little resemblance to the bright red sauce we know today. Instead of fish, they used ingredients like mushrooms, walnuts, anchovies, and oysters. Mushroom ketchup in particular became incredibly popular in England during the 17th and 18th centuries.
We want mushroom ketchup. This is what ketchup was in the 18th century. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says a sauce made of mushrooms. It doesn't have anything to do with tomato.
To make mushroom ketchup, cooks would chop mushrooms, salt them heavily to extract their juices, and then simmer the mixture with spices such as cloves, nutmeg, and pepper. The result was a dark, thin sauce with a rich, earthy flavor, perfect for adding depth to soups, stews, and meat dishes. I'm not quite sure you'd have liked it, though. I wouldn't. Other variations included anchovy ketchup, which was made by blending anchovies with vinegar and spices, and walnut ketchup, which used crushed walnuts as its base. These ketchups were thinner than modern ketchup and often resembled flavored broths or marinades. They were used to enhance the natural flavors of food rather than to overpower them. The word ketchup itself began to take on a broader meaning during this time. Originally derived from Ketchup, it no longer referred to a specific fish-based sauce, but rather to a category of savory condiments that were salty, tangy, and versatile. By the 18th century, ketchup had become a staple in English households, and recipes for homemade ketchup appeared in cookbooks of the time. This is where it gets interesting.
Tomato ketchup is so rich, so thick. It's well worth waiting for.
Enter the tomato. It's hard to imagine ketchup without tomatoes. The vibrant red color, the balance of sweet and tangy flavors, it's all about the tomato, right? But that wasn't always the case. In fact, tomatoes were a controversial ingredient for a long time, and it took centuries before they became a core part of ketchup's identity. Let's rewind to the 1500s. Tomatoes made their way to Europe from the Americas following the Columbian Exchange. Originally cultivated by the Aztecs and other Mesoamerican civilizations, tomatoes were highly prized in the Americas. But when they arrived in Europe, the reception was mixed, to say the least. Tomatoes belonged to the nightshade family of plants, which included some notorious poisonous species. This connection led to widespread suspicion among Europeans. Many believed tomatoes were toxic and unfit for human consumption. For years, they were grown as ornamental plants rather than as a food source, adding to the problem. The acidic nature of tomatoes posed a peculiar risk when paired with the pewter plates commonly used at the time. The acid would leach lead from the plates, causing poisoning symptoms that reinforced the belief that tomatoes were dangerous. It wasn't until the 18th century that tomatoes started shedding their bad reputation. Gradually, tomatoes began to appear in Mediterranean cuisines, particularly in Italy and Spain, where they were incorporated into sauces, soups, and stews. By the late 1700s, they had become a beloved ingredient in many parts of Europe, valued for their bright flavor and versatility. Still, the idea of using tomatoes in ketchup hadn't yet been born. So, how did tomato ketchup become the star it is right now?
And when it comes to taste, all that thickness, all that richness makes Heinz taste like no other ketchup can. Only Heinz can say it's America's favorite ketchup.
Ketchup goes commercial. The first known recipe for tomato-based ketchup appeared in 1812, thanks to an American scientist and horticulturist named James Mees. In his writings, Mees referred to tomatoes as love apples. His ketchup recipe was a significant departure from the mushroom and anchovy versions popular in Europe. Mees's tomato ketchup combined ripe tomatoes with spices like mace, nutmeg, and cloves, as well as brandy. Yes, brandy. His recipe wasn't the thick, sweet sauce we're familiar with today. It was more of a spiced tomato sauce. But it was a breakthrough nonetheless, marking the first time tomatoes were central to a ketchup recipe. Mees's recipe quickly gained traction, particularly in the United States, where tomatoes were widely available and relatively inexpensive. By the mid-19th century, ketchup had evolved into a tomato-based sauce that was gaining popularity in the United States. It was flavorful, versatile, and relatively easy to make at home. However, the growing demand for ketchup was beginning to push it out of the kitchen and into the marketplace. Small businesses and manufacturers saw an opportunity to turn ketchup into a commercially viable product, but this came with significant challenges. The ketchup we know today, the kind that comes in neat, uniform bottles, had a long and often messy journey through the world of commercial production. The first commercial ketchups were produced by small regional companies. These ketchups were often sold in barrels or glass jars and were intended for local consumption. Recipes varied widely from one producer to the next, and there was little standardization. One bottle might be thick and sweet, while another could be thin and tangy. This inconsistency was both a selling point and a problem. Customers liked the variety, but often found it difficult to know what they were buying. Then there was the issue of preservation. In the days before modern refrigeration and pasteurization, keeping tomato-based products from spoiling was a significant challenge. Tomatoes are highly perishable, and early ketchups had a notoriously short shelf life. To address this, many manufacturers turned to preservatives, but not all preservatives were created equal. Some of the early preservation methods used for ketchup were downright alarming. Manufacturers often added chemicals like coal tar, benzoates, or formaldehyde to extend the sauce's shelf life. Coal tar, a byproduct of coal processing, was especially popular because it not only helped preserve ketchup but also enhanced its color, giving it a bright red color that appealed to customers. Unfortunately, these additives were far from safe. Coal tar is super toxic, and formaldehyde is now known to be a carcinogen. At the time, food safety regulations were minimal or non-existent, so manufacturers could include these substances without facing much scrutiny. However, public awareness of the dangers associated with chemical preservatives was growing, and consumers were becoming increasingly concerned about the purity of their food. This growing concern about food safety came to a head in the early 20th century, thanks in part to Upton Sinclair's groundbreaking 1906 novel, The Jungle. While the book focused on the unsanitary conditions in Chicago's meatpacking industry, it also sparked broader conversations about the state of food production in the United States. Consumers began demanding better oversight and safer practices, and the government responded with the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act in 1906. This legislation marked a turning point for the ketchup industry. Manufacturers could no longer rely on harmful preservatives to keep their products fresh. They needed to find safer, more natural ways to make ketchup that was both tasty and shelf-stable. The breakthrough that would solve ketchup's preservation problem and set the stage for its meteoric rise came in the late 19th century. The hero of this chapter? Come with us and you'll see. Henry J. Heinz, the game changer. In 1876, Henry J. Heinz introduced his now famous tomato ketchup. Heinz's approach was revolutionary for several reasons. First, he used ripe tomatoes as the base for his ketchup. At the time, many manufacturers used green or unripe tomatoes, which contained more pectin but less natural sweetness. Heinz's decision to use ripe tomatoes allowed him to create a more flavorful and naturally sweet ketchup. Second, Heinz relied on vinegar as a natural preservative, eliminating the need for harmful additives like coal tar. This made his ketchup safer and more appealing to consumers who were becoming increasingly concerned about food purity. Finally, Heinz prioritized transparency in his marketing. His ketchup was packaged in clear glass bottles, allowing customers to see the product before purchasing it. This was a bold move in an era when many food producers preferred opaque containers to hide imperfections or inconsistencies. The clear bottles became a symbol of Heinz's commitment to quality and honesty, helping to build trust with consumers. Heinz's ketchup was an instant success. Its consistent flavor, safe ingredients, and clever packaging set a new standard for the industry, and it wasn't long before other manufacturers began following his lead. Today, Heinz remains one of the most iconic names in ketchup, a testament to the lasting impact of his innovations. The success of Heinz's ketchup marked the beginning of the industrial era for the condiment. Other manufacturers quickly followed suit, adopting similar methods to produce their own versions of tomato ketchup. Advances in technology played a crucial role in this process. Canning and pasteurization techniques improved, allowing ketchup to be produced and stored on a larger scale. Factories were able to produce thousands of bottles of ketchup per day, making it more affordable and accessible to the average consumer. Innovations in bottling and packaging also helped streamline production and reduce costs. As ketchup became more widely available, it also became more ingrained in American food culture. It wasn't just a condiment. It was a symbol of the nation's growing love for convenience and consistency in food. By the early 20th century, ketchup was a staple in homes across the United States, often paired with popular dishes like hamburgers, hot dogs, and French fries. While ketchup had become a household staple in the United States, it was also beginning to make waves internationally. American brands like Heinz started exporting their products to other countries, introducing ketchup to new markets. In some regions, ketchup was embraced wholeheartedly and became a key part of local cuisine. For example, in the Philippines, a shortage of tomatoes during World War II led to the creation of banana ketchup, a sweet and tangy alternative made from bananas, sugar, and vinegar. This version of ketchup became so popular that it's still a favorite in the Philippines today. In other countries, ketchup was adapted to fit local tastes. In Japan, for instance, ketchup is often used as a base for dishes like omelets, a rice-stuffed omelet topped with ketchup, and spaghetti Napolitan, a Japanese take on Italian pasta. These regional adaptations highlight ketchup's incredible versatility and its ability to transcend cultural boundaries. Ketchup's rise to prominence mirrored broader changes in American society, from the industrialization of food production to the growing influence of fast food. Today, ketchup is one of the most recognizable and beloved condiments in the world. From the homemade batches of the 19th century to the mass-produced bottles that line supermarket shelves today, ketchup has come a long way, and it shows no signs of slowing down. Let's now look at why ketchup is so good. The science of ketchup's appeal. Ketchup is one of the most popular condiments in the world, but have you ever wondered why it's so universally loved? What is it about this simple tomato-based sauce that makes it the perfect companion to everything from fries to scrambled eggs? The answer lies in the science of taste, texture, and even psychology. Ketchup isn't just delicious, it's a near-perfect example of culinary engineering. Let's start with the flavor. Ketchup is unique because it satisfies all 5 basic taste sensations: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Most foods highlight 1 or 2 of these tastes, but ketchup brings them all together in a harmonious balance. This is part of what makes ketchup so appealing. It delivers a complex yet familiar flavor that feels satisfying on a fundamental level. Sweetness. The sweetness in ketchup comes from the ripe tomatoes and added sugar. Sweetness is naturally appealing because humans are biologically wired to crave sugar. It signals energy and nourishment. Saltiness. Salt is a key ingredient in ketchup, enhancing the flavor of the tomatoes and balancing out the sweetness. Salt is another universally loved taste because it highlights the natural flavors in food. Sourness. The tangy acidity in ketchup comes from vinegar and sometimes citric acid. Sourness adds brightness to the sauce, making it feel fresh and cutting through the richness of fried or fatty foods. Bitterness. While subtle, there is a slight bitterness in ketchup from the tomatoes and spices. Bitterness adds depth and complexity, preventing the sauce from being overly sweet or one-dimensional. Umami. Finally, the umami in ketchup comes from the tomatoes themselves. Tomatoes are a natural source of glutamates, the compounds responsible for that savory, mouth-watering taste. Umami is what gives ketchup its meaty flavor, making it the perfect pairing for burgers and other hearty dishes. This balance of tastes is what makes ketchup so versatile. Whether you're dipping fries, slathering it on a burger, or even using it as a base for a sauce, ketchup complements a wide range of flavors and textures. The great thing is, ketchup isn't just about taste, it's also about texture. The thick, smooth consistency of ketchup is one of its defining characteristics, and it's no accident. The texture of ketchup is carefully engineered to create a satisfying sensory experience. Most ketchups are classified as non-Newtonian fluids, which means their viscosity changes depending on the force applied to them. At rest, ketchup is thick and doesn't flow easily. But when you apply pressure, say by squeezing a bottle or tapping the bottom of a glass container, the ketchup becomes thinner and flows more readily. This property is known as shear thinning, and it's one of the reasons ketchup feels so satisfying to use. Getting the texture of ketchup just right is a precise science. If it's too thick, it won't pour easily, frustrating consumers. If it's too thin, it won't cling to food properly, leading to a disappointing dipping experience. Manufacturers like Heinz have spent decades perfecting the viscosity of their ketchup to strike the perfect balance. Fun fact, Heinz ketchup is designed to flow at a rate of 0.028 miles per hour. This slow pour formula ensures that the ketchup feels thick and luxurious while still being functional. It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference in how we perceive and enjoy the product. Have you ever noticed how ketchup seems to go with almost any dish? From French fries to meatloaf to scrambled eggs, ketchup's versatility is unmatched. Part of this comes down to its balanced flavor profile, but there's also a psychological component at play. Ketchup is what food scientists call a flavor enhancer. Its combination of sweet, tangy, and umami flavors doesn't just taste good on its own. It actually makes other foods taste better. The acidity in ketchup cuts through rich, greasy foods like burgers and fries, while its sweetness complements salty or savory dishes. Additionally, ketchup has a nostalgic quality for many people. It's often associated with childhood meals, backyard barbecues, and comfort food. This emotional connection can make ketchup feel like a safe choice, something familiar and reliable. Trust me, it's incredibly satisfying to just squeeze a ton of ketchup on something. Ketchup's appeal isn't just about what's inside the bottle, it's also about how it's presented. Packaging plays a huge role in how we perceive and enjoy ketchup, and manufacturers have spent decades perfecting the design of ketchup bottles. The iconic glass Heinz bottle, introduced in 1876, was revolutionary for its time. At a time when many food products were sold in opaque containers, Heinz's clear glass bottle allowed customers to see the product before buying it. This transparency built trust and reassured consumers that they were getting a high-quality product. However, the glass bottle wasn't without its challenges. Anyone who's ever struggled to get ketchup out of a glass bottle knows that it can be a bit of a workout. Heinz eventually turned this quirk into a selling point, marketing their ketchup as a slow-pour product that was worth the wait. The company even released tips for getting the ketchup to flow, such as tapping the 57 on the neck of the bottle. In the late 20th century, plastic squeeze bottles became the norm, making ketchup more convenient and user-friendly. Today, most ketchup bottles are designed with flip-top lids and no-drip spouts, ensuring a mess-free experience. These innovations may seem minor, but they've played a big role in making ketchup a staple in homes around the world. Behind every bottle of ketchup is a team of food scientists working to ensure that the product is as delicious, consistent, and appealing as possible. This involves everything from selecting the right variety of tomatoes to fine-tuning the balance of sugar, salt, and vinegar. For example, the tomatoes used in ketchup are typically specific varieties bred for their high levels of natural sugars and glutamates. These tomatoes are harvested at peak ripeness to ensure maximum flavor. The spices used in ketchup are also carefully chosen and blended to complement the natural taste of the tomatoes without overpowering them. Even the color of ketchup is carefully monitored. A bright, vibrant red color is essential for consumer appeal, so manufacturers use techniques like heat processing and natural coloring agents to achieve the perfect hue. For our final act, how about some of the most mind-blowingly delicious ketchup recipes ever? the most iconic dishes made with ketchup. While most people think of ketchup as something you dip fries into or squirt onto a burger, its sweet, tangy, and umami-rich profile has made it an essential component in numerous classic recipes. Look, ketchup is great by itself, but when you add it to other stuff, it's even better. You don't believe it? Wait till you see what I got for you. Sloppy Joes. First on our list, there's perhaps no dish more synonymous with ketchup than Sloppy Joes. This classic American sandwich is as simple as it is delicious. Made by simmering ground beef in a rich, slightly sweet and tangy tomato-based sauce, then serving it on a soft hamburger bun.
Sloppy Joes. That's right, the cafeteria classic. It's got to be a little sloppy because, it's called Sloppy Joe.
The origins of the Sloppy Joe date back to the early 20th century, with some food historians tracing it to a cook named Joe from Sioux City, Iowa, who added tomato sauce to his loose meat sandwiches. Others believe the dish was inspired by similar saucy minced meat sandwiches served in Cuba and brought to the U.S. by American travelers. What makes Sloppy Joes truly iconic is the sauce, a mixture of ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, mustard, onions, and a touch of brown sugar that caramelizes as it cooks. The result is a hearty, savory, sweet filling that practically melts into the soft bun. The dish is a favorite among kids and adults alike, and its association with school lunches and backyard barbecues has made it an enduring comfort food in American culture.
Omurice, which is omelet over chicken rice.
Omurice. If you travel to Japan, one of the most beloved comfort foods you'll find is omurice, a dish that fuses Western-style omelets with Japanese-style fried rice, flavored generously with ketchup. Omurice was born in the early 1900s in Japan, inspired by the European-style Western food, yoshoku, that was becoming popular at the time. The dish consists of fried rice, usually cooked with chicken, peas, and onions, seasoned with ketchup, and then wrapped in a thin layer of egg. The final touch? A drizzle of ketchup on top for extra flavor and presentation. The beauty of omurice is its balance between creamy, savory eggs and the tangy sweetness of the ketchup-infused rice. It's often served in Japanese diners and home kitchens as a nostalgic, feel-good meal. The dish has even become famous in pop culture, appearing in anime, movies, and trendy cafes where chefs artistically drizzle ketchup into playful messages or cute drawings on top of the omelet. Meatloaf. Few dishes define American home cooking like meatloaf, a dish that has been a staple in households for generations. While recipes vary, one thing remains constant: the iconic ketchup glaze on top. Meatloaf gained widespread popularity in the early 20th century.
It's my classic meatloaf. It has a delicious glaze, it's moist, juicy, and just what you need tonight.
Particularly during the Great Depression, when ground meat and breadcrumbs made for an economical, filling meal. The addition of ketchup to the meat mixture, and later, as a glaze, took the dish to another level, enhancing its moisture and adding a tangy sweet kick that caramelizes beautifully in the oven. The glaze, typically made from ketchup, brown sugar, and Worcestershire sauce, is arguably the best part. As it bakes, it forms a sticky, slightly crispy topping that contrasts perfectly with the tender, juicy meat. Whether served fresh out of the oven or in leftover sandwiches the next day, meatloaf remains one of the most cherished dishes that rely on ketchup as a key ingredient.
Sweet and sour chicken. Super simple, but mega tasty.
Sweet and sour chicken. While ketchup is often associated with American fast food, it plays a surprisingly significant role in Chinese cuisine, particularly in the creation of sweet and sour chicken. This beloved dish, found in Chinese-American restaurants worldwide, owes much of its signature flavor to ketchup. Sweet and sour chicken has its roots in traditional Cantonese cooking, where vinegar-based sauces were used to add tartness to fried meats. However, when the dish made its way to the United States, ketchup was incorporated into the sauce to give it a vibrant red color and a balanced, slightly fruity sweetness. The sauce, typically made from ketchup, vinegar, sugar, soy sauce, and sometimes pineapple juice, coats crispy, battered chicken pieces, creating a sticky, glossy coating that's irresistible. While the dish has evolved over time, the presence of ketchup remains one of the defining characteristics of westernized versions of sweet and sour chicken. BBQ sauce. No list of iconic ketchup-based dishes would be complete without barbecue sauce, a condiment that has become a fundamental part of American barbecue culture. While there are many regional styles of barbecue sauce, some vinegar-based, some mustard-based, the thick, sweet, smoky variety that dominates supermarket shelves today wouldn't exist without ketchup. Barbecue sauce, as we know it, originated in the southern United States, evolving from early European and African cooking techniques. While early barbecue sauces were primarily vinegar or mustard-based, the addition of ketchup in the late 19th and early 20th centuries helped create the rich, slightly tangy and sweet sauce that we recognize today.
This lusciously thick barbecue sauce is sweet, smoky, and tangy, and it all comes together in less than 10 minutes.
The basic ingredients of a classic barbecue sauce include ketchup, brown sugar, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar, and spices like smoked paprika and garlic powder. The ketchup provides the perfect base, adding body, acidity, and sweetness, while the other ingredients layer in complexity. Whether used for basting ribs, coating pulled pork, or dipping chicken tenders, ketchup-based barbecue sauce is an undisputed classic that has left a lasting mark on American cuisine. Ketchup's impact on culture goes far beyond the dinner table. It's a symbol of comfort, nostalgia, and culinary creativity, appearing in everything from TV shows and movies to gourmet kitchens and food debates. Whether it's sparking arguments about hot dogs or serving as a canvas for artistic innovation, ketchup is more than just a sauce. It's a part of our collective story. So the next time you reach for a bottle of ketchup, take a moment to appreciate its journey. From its humble origins to its status as a cultural icon, ketchup has earned its place in history and on your plate. Do let me know what combos you'll be trying, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.